see if we can all learn a few things. Go ahead, Jenny.
All right. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I am here in Chicago, so I hope that you guys are a lot warmer than I am. But nonetheless, I want to welcome you all to the USA Taekwondo Open Q&A for athletes. And of course, coaches and parents are always invited and encouraged to attend to learn more about how to support and develop their athlete and create environments that are rich for growth. So with that being said, Patrick will be fielding your questions. So please, if you do have a question for me, we want to make sure that we answer them. If you look to either your right or left side of the screen, it's usually to your right side on your screen, there is a question answer box or a chat box. And you can actually type in your question, and Patrick will read those questions and I will answer them, as we go through live. So go ahead and you can start typing in your questions so we can go ahead and get ready to answer them.
I have one for you, Jenny, if you want to get.
Yes, let's do that.
The question is, as a coach, what can I say to a competitor when he is in a match to keep him trying as hard as possible? Oftentimes I've seen competitors get discouraged.
Right, that's a great question, and especially for sparring, it really depends on the athlete. Can you tell me a little bit more about your particular athlete, or is this a general question?
It's coming from a coach. I may get more texted into me for right now. That's all I have for you.
Okay. So there's a couple of ways that you can handle that. You want to keep them focused on the game. So you want to keep them immersed in their performance. Let them know what they're doing well. You don't want them to try doing something new, and you want to avoid encouraging them to do something that they're uncomfortable doing. That's really going to take their head out of the game. It's going to increase that feeling of uncertainty. It's going to reduce the confidence that they might have even more. So you really want to encourage them by telling them what they're doing well, have them do more of that, and part of your role as a coach is knowing what they can do well. If they're losing by 1 or 2 points and they're starting to beat themselves up, remind them that it's only, the first round, the second round, or they still have one more round to go. So you want to look at the glass half full when your athlete is starting to get discouraged. You also want to encourage your athlete to breathe. Breathing from the lowest part of their stomach when their muscles are starting to tighten up is going to help them relax a little bit. But if it's more an emotional type of shutdown, you want them to breathe from their upper chest. So that'll help them to at least, let go of some of that anxiety. So those are some things that you can do to help your athletes stay motivated and stay focused. Remember, keeping your sparring athletes immersed in their performance, focused on what's going on in the ring, is going to allow them to stay more focused and to reduce the chances of them becoming distracted by too much emotion.
I do have one more, Jenny.
Okay.
It says, can you talk a bit about how to stay mentally focused during practice and the game, even though you may be dealing with personal problems that try to sneak their way into your mind?
Okay, that's a 2-part question. So mentally focused during practice and during competition. If you have personal problems, I'm just writing this down. So let's talk about just being able to stay focused. The reason that we tell people to overtrain, and that means doing it over and over and over again, because it helps with, of course, muscle memory, but it also helps an athlete to just get immersed in the performance. Now, when you're practicing, you want to practice game time conditions whenever possible. You want to allow the 90-second or the 2-minute rounds to be full, just like it will be in practice, because it allows the athlete to get comfortable with the amount of time that they're going to be competing. For some coaches, they have 5-minute rounds, and all those things are great, but that should be something that is not typically the norm. You want to stay close to what competition is going to look like. That will help them at least become more comfortable during practice and be focused and get regulated in a certain way. Now, when people have personal problems, they tend to look towards sport, whether it's taekwondo or any other sport, as a way of releasing. And sport is very, very good for that. It's called sublimation. Now, if the personal problems that somebody is experiencing is starting to interfere with their performance, that's when we say, hey, it's really time for you to maybe go talk with someone, get it out. Doesn't mean that you're crazy at all. It's something that is troubling you enough that it's interfering with how you might normally perform. So talking it out for a lot of athletes seems to be enough. Whether you're talking to a counselor, talking to your coach, talking with someone else, being able to get it out of your body, out of your system, getting a different perspective, usually is very helpful. Now, there are some cases where you just can't do that. There are times when you're not going to be able to talk with someone or you're uncomfortable talking with someone. The best thing that you can do is, again, going back to being immersed in the performance. Now, if someone has a problem with anxiety or confidence, you're going to deal with that a little differently. Part of it for each athlete is that they may have the same experience or the same symptoms, they may have the same symptoms, but the reason behind it is usually different for each athlete. So it's usually some particular set of experiences that have led them to being distracted or losing their focus. This is why we encourage athletes to talk with someone as soon as something is starting to become a problem. Coaches and parents, if you're noticing that happen within your athlete, you can even sit down and talk with them and ask him or her what's going on, what seems to be bothering them. And oftentimes, that's all you need to do with your athlete in order to get them focused again. Whatever you do, don't let it build up. Let them get it out. Reassure them that they will be fine, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to get refocused.
Okay, Jenny, I have another one for you. The first round of the match has gone poorly. How do you erase that round and start fresh?
Okay, that's a great question. It kind of ties back into the first question that was asked. It depends on the athlete. So as the coach, I'll give you an example. Some coaches, they will have it where the first round is kind of the feeler round, where they're feeling out their opponent and they're not really doing too much other than trying to see what their opponent is going to do. So they'll do a lot of feints, checks, if you will, and they want to see how their opponent is going to react. So going out in the first round for many athletes is strategic. They're not really planning to do anything. So preparing your athlete for what they're going to do that first round and what they're going to look for is going to be very, very helpful to managing the second and the third rounds. Now, if your athlete is one of those folks who goes out and they hit the mat running and say they're down in the first round, you as a coach, you really want to pull them back and say, okay, this is what I see you doing. This is what I see that person doing. This is what I really want you to focus on doing this second round, especially if they're a made athlete. Remember, made athletes need very specific, simple instructions and directions. You can't give them a whole bunch of things to do. Just one or two things that you want them to do. Your natural athletes, remember, you're not going to tell them what to do. You're going to tell them what you see. They tend to figure out what to do based on what they've done in practice and based on what they think is best for them. So make sure you know who is a made athlete and who is a natural athlete. That's how you're going to encourage them the best. So have a plan for what you guys are going to do the first round. Remember, the first round is the first round. They have 2 more rounds to go. So you want to help them regulate their anxiety and their anger and their disappointment and keep them focused on what's coming up. If you keep them in the past, they're going to get very depressed and they're not going to be able to focus on the next round. So try to keep them focused on what they're going to do next.
Okay, here's another one for you. What would you say to a competitor just before a match? I'm assuming this has to do with getting them motivated and getting them started in the right direction.
Right. So with coaching, especially with athletes, this is where the athlete and coach have to work very closely together. So it sounds like a coach may be asking that question. And what I always suggest, and you can even circle back with Coach Nelson on this as well, is every athlete should have a plan. What is the plan and the purpose of this particular tournament? So you already know what you're going to be going into round one, trying to do what in terms of the goal, what are you going to be working on, what are you going to focus on doing more or less of. So getting them ready for their matches. Okay, remember, this is what we're going to do. You can do this. You've been practicing this, reminding them of their competencies, reminding them of their goal, reminding them of the purpose that they're there for. So it's really a lot of getting the athlete grounded, which means getting them set in the moment, in the present, not getting too far ahead of themselves, not worrying about things that are going to happen because they have no control over what's going to happen in round 3. They need to get through round 1 right now. So those are some of the things that I would suggest doing, but you have to have a goal. What's the goal of this particular tournament? Every athlete is going to be different. And when both the athlete and the coach knows that, it makes managing each of those rounds so much easier.
Thank you. Okay. We have found that the sports psychology element has been somewhat the missing piece of the puzzle in our daughter's training regime. She has a library of your meditations and has worked with you personally. My question is, what is a good maintenance schedule for meditations?
That is a great question, and I'm glad that I've worked with your daughter. So I hope she continues to do well. One of the things I do tell athletes in martial arts is meditation is part of training. And if you could meditate before you train and then after you train, that's ideal. Now, if meditation isn't part of your training at your dojo, that's okay. You can meditate before you go into workout. A lot of times you can meditate in the car on your way to training, and if you can meditate when you're done or on your way back home, that's fantastic. That's the ideal situation for athletes. But if for whatever reason you don't have that kind of time and things just kind of move too fast and life happens, try to meditate 3 times a week, especially if you know you have a competition coming up, at the very least 3 times a week. And if you do combat visualizations, make sure that you're comfortable with being able to relax, being able to get into that space, being able to focus. That really is going to help you regulate emotionally, because remember, when you win your first match, it sets the tone. Your confidence level goes up. So you always want to win your first match in your meditation or in your combat visualization before you actually go fight. That's why excuse me, I have a code. That's why when people get buys, some athletes get excited and some athletes get upset. The reason for that is when someone gets a buy, even though you have one less fight, the person you are about to fight has already won. That already boosts their confidence level. So they're going in warmed up and all that other good stuff, but the biggest piece to that is that they're ready. They know they can win. They've done this before. So your meditation as part of maintenance should be 3 days a week when you're about to go into competition. And the week of competition, if you can meditate and calm your mind every day for 7 days. And definitely the night before competition, as you probably already know, you do your level 2 meditation, you do a combat meditation, you wake up in the morning, ease into the day, nothing rush. You do your level 2 meditation for anxiety or relaxation, just to get your body and your mind calm. You do another combat visualization. And then when you're in the holding area, that's when you're just relaxing. You're listening to your meditations, whatever is to your liking, and you ease into your match, ready to go. You're not tensed up. That's what I tell every athlete to do. That's my personal recommendation. But athletes know their situations better. If you want to do it more every week, completely fine. You can never meditate too much.
Great, Jenny. Thank you. We have a bunch of more good ones coming up here. What are some techniques to keep a competitor immersed in the match before and during the match?
them immersed in, I'm guessing, in the performance. But there are a couple of things I'm trying to